So let's move into starting to create a customer and set up a basic customer, and we can begin attaching some of these services we've made and looking at the billing parameters and that kind of thing. So if you go to accounts, we have a big button at the top to create a new account. I'm going to click on that. And that's going to take me to my account creation wizard. So I'm going to start by putting in an account name. And if this is a commercial account, this might be the name of the business. If it's residential, it's probably just the person's name that's calling. You can really put whatever you want there. I'm going to put Simon Westlake. Type of account I'm going to leave as residential, and the default status here is lead. You generally are going to want to put people in a lead status or some kind of inactive status until they've been installed and set up. But if you want them to be active right away, you would just set this to active right out of the gate. Fill in some contact information over here. I can copy the account name over into the name field, and then all these other fields are optional. So maybe if I only have an email address, I can put that in here. Maybe if I have a phone number, I can put that in. The role is just a way for you to define who this person is. So on a commercial account, you'd commonly use this to say, you know, this is the technical contact, this is the billing contact, that kind of thing. On a residential account, probably not going to use it. Can enter some notes here, so if there's any notes you want to input right out of the gate about this account, we can fill that in, otherwise we just leave that blank. And then we need to come in and put in the address. So by default we have a physical and a mailing address. You can create other address types if you want to. These are going to be the most common. The physical address is where the service is going to be installed at, where the customer is. The mailing address would be where we want to send any invoice or any mail documents to. If you don't enter a mailing address, we will use the physical by default, so you don't need to worry about copying in the mailing if the physical is already in place. We have two ways that we can input an address here. I can type in an address and click validate, which is going to make sure that we entered the address correctly. It's going to look up the latitude and longitude, and it's going to look up the county if you're in the United States. Or we can drop a pin on the map and move it around and look up an address at that point. So let's go at it from that way. I'm going to zoom in on this map here a little, and let's look for an area that we think we're going to have service at. So let's look here. If I take a pin and drop it on the map by clicking drop pin up here, I'm going to position it over this house, and I'm going to click look up. And this has looked up what the address is there, so it's found the address, the city, the county, and the zip. I could come at this the other way around, and let's say I typed in this address and I didn't know what the county was. I could click validate entered address, and it's going to look up what the county is based on that, as well as looking up the Latin long. So if you know the address, type it in, click validate. We'll try and fill in the blanks as well as calculating the Latin long. If you don't know the address and you're looking for it on the map, just place the pin, drag it around, and then click look up when you're at the correct point. One other thing to note here as well, when I validated this, it put the pin on the road because that's where the mailing address is marked to be. You can move this pin around afterwards, and you'll notice that it is updating the latitude and longitude. So if the address locates itself on a highway, but you know the house is really, half a mile off the highway or whatever the case is, you can move the pin to the appropriate place so that you have the right Latin long saved. So I'm going to go ahead and create this account. And this is going to take me now into the main account screen. So we'll go through this at a high level, and then in the next videos here we'll delve into the actual configuration of the account. So on my main dashboard, it just shows me some overview information about the account, what their due balance is, what their next recurring charge is. This is all zero right now because we haven't set up any services. They don't owe any money. You can see a list of recent communications. We don't have any yet. We can see some information about calls and tickets in the last 12 months. Can see the primary contact and data usage, which we don't have any yet because we haven't started collecting on this account. Over on the right we have some related information about the account and related items. So first of all, I can see who else is currently viewing this account. If another user loads up Sonar and starts looking at this account at the same time as me, I would see their icon here and I'd be able to highlight it to see who it is. So this is useful, and this is something we have in a lot of places in Sonar, but it's a useful way for you to see. If you ask a coworker, can you take a look at this account with me, you'll see right away when they start looking at it. We have lists of scheduled events. We'll cover these in a later video, but this allows you to schedule things to happen to this account on a future date. We have notes. If I'd created a note on my initial setup, it would be entered here. I can also come in here and enter a quick note. So I get to pick the type of note that it is. I can input some data for the note, and I can set a priority. If my priority is normal, it'll just be put in a list of notes. If it's sticky, it'll always be the first note on the page. And if I do auto pop-up, then whenever I load this page, this note will be popped up onto the screen, and you'll have to dismiss it to actually look at the account. So if there's some information that is very critical that people see every time they access this account, you'd want to put this on auto pop-up. I'm just going to create a normal note for now so you guys can see what that looks like, and there it is. Down below that we have tasks. So tasks are, again, a general thing that we have throughout Sonar, but they allow you to just create a quick task that needs to be done on this account and assign it to somebody. So let's say we need to paint this customer's house. I could say paint the house. It needs to be done by a specific date, and I'm going to assign this to the admin user. And when I create this task, you'll notice that the task now shows up in the list here, but I've also gotten a notification up here. So if you think back to our original video in the series, talked a bit about why notifications would appear. I've now got a notification as a task assigned to me, and I can open up my notifications here to see the task. I can click on this link to go directly to the account, and I can also look at my task list and see it here. And I'm going to check that one off, mark it as complete. Down below that we have logs, so anything that's changed on the account or anything that's modified or anything we add is going to get logged here. So we can see there's a number of different logs in here for the account being created and the initial addresses being created and that kind of thing that we can take a look at. And then we have all our documentation below. Along the top we have the navigation entries for the CRM itself, and above that we have a few buttons we can use to manipulate the account. So this menu here lets us do things like change the name and the type and delete the account. Only super users can delete accounts, and they can only be deleted if there haven't been any financial transactions on there. Anything that's happened that's created a history in Sonar is going to block the account from being deleted. You can also click on details here to see when it was created, when it was activated, as well as changing the status to something else, changing the type, and we can see the ID. In the General tab we have the addresses, so we only have a physical address right now. I can click Edit to change that physical address or add a mailing address. We have a list of contacts. We only have the primary one we created when we first set up this account, but I can click Create to make another one, or I can use the menu here to edit the account, change the portal credentials, download a vCard into my address book, that kind of thing. If we had any account groups created, we could see them here and we could assign into the groups. Groups are really just a way for you to group accounts by some arbitrary criteria, and then we can define policy that affects those groups. So you can create any group that makes sense to you, and then you're able to do things like send emails to only customers in those groups. We can impose network policy to people in those groups, that kind of thing. And if you want to make any groups, it's under Accounts and then Account Groups. In our Billing tab, this is where we're going to do all of our billing on the account, and I'm going to go through this in detail in the next video, but just be aware it's here. We have a list of transactions, list of invoices. Here are our billing parameters. So these have all been inherited from those default billing parameters we set up. But if we're an account super user, I can come in here and edit these and change these. If I'm not a super user, I'm not able to do that. We'll have a list of contracts on the account. You can check out our contracts video series if you want to see how electronic contracts work in Sonar, but they'd be listed here if we had any. List of services on the account. Payment methods would be a credit card or a bank account, something like that. If we're doing voice billing, we could have a list of DIDs here as well as call records. Taxes have been applied. You'll notice, if you recall from our taxation video, we set up a state sales tax for Michigan. And because this customer's address, if we look at addresses, is in the state of Michigan, we've automatically had the Michigan state sales tax applied to our account, which will be used for any transactions that need to be assessed for that state sales tax. And then linked accounts is how we do that parent-child relationship I talked about earlier. We'll delve into this directly in another video, but just be aware. This is where we can make this a sub-account of another master, or we can make this a master account for a particular sub-account. Inventories, where we have any inventory on the account. Check out the inventory series for details on that, but you'll see a list of assigned inventory here, as well as being able to add inventory from our inventory system onto the account. Networks, where we'll set our IP assignments. We'll be able to look at data usage, and we can set up Radius accounts if you use Radius. Communications, I'll have a list of tickets, call logs, and sent emails if we have any. Scheduling is going to show any scheduled jobs, so install, service calls, that kind of thing. Files is where we can track files on the account, and you're able to upload files here that you want to store. These could be images, they could be a configuration file for a device, it could be a document, really anything that you want, and we'll see a list of those files here. And then last is custom fields, which I don't have any configured right now, but we'll delve into that in a little later video. So we have this account created. In the next video we're going to step through adding a service to this account, looking at some transactions, making a payment, and some of those billing actions.